Okay, hello chess players. In this video, I'm going to talk about a type of move that happens in chess. I'm going to try to explain why it happens, how you can incorporate it into your own chess strategy, or maybe even your own opening repertoire, depending on exactly what openings you play, and when this tool is used and why it's particularly important for competitive tournaments. And that's basically the use of what we call a prophylaxis move or a preventative move, a move to try to prevent your opponent's plans, like possibly before he even thought about doing anything. So, anyways, if you like content like this and want to see more of it, please hit the subscribe button and click your notification icon. So, the game that I'm going to show here, and I'm going to actually show, kind of multiple positions and multiple types of games where this type of thing happens. But I'm going to take a look at this game between Fischer and Tiger and Petroian played in 1961. It was a Caro-Kann. And actually, prophylaxis comes up a lot in the Caro-Kann because the Caro-Kann has sort of been analyzed to death. And one of the issues is it becomes very, very difficult to get anything out of the position. And that's actually where prophylaxis moves come up the most. It's kind of like you get to an exhaustion of theory, or you get to like an endpoint, and then you honestly don't know what the best move is. Because I'm going to tell you something a little controversial about prophylaxis moves. Uh, they're almost never the best move. It's kind of a weird thing. Like every time I've seen a position where like I would naturally pick a prophylaxis move, or I'd play one almost automatically, or when I go over a game and I go, oh, of course he played, H3, or he played King B1, or he played King H1. Obviously he played this move. Like if you look at it on an engine afterwards, the engine always has it as like the second pick or the third best pick. Usually it's within the same range of evaluation. Usually it's like, the difference between like point 0.1 and point 0.1, point 0.2 or whatever. But it's almost never like the absolute right move. But for the tournament situation and for where you're at and for trying to get your opponent to make a mistake, it's almost always the right choice. So that's kind of the disconnect. Well, anyways, this game continued. D captures e4, knight captures e4, knight d7, and then we have knight f3, knight f6. We have knight takes f6, knight takes f6, bishop f4, bishop f5, queen e2, e6, bishop g5, then bishop g4, which is just a great move, completely equalizes. We have castles queenside, bishop e7, h3 takes, and knight d5, bishop e7, queen e7. Okay, safe to say, Fischer got nothing out of this position with white. He's got a little bit more space. This knight is blockading everything on d5. Everything got exchanged. There's a whole lot of nothing in this position. It's not clear like what the best way to proceed is for white where you can try to get anything out of it. Like a lot of attempts come to mind, like maybe h4 with maybe the follow-up of h5. That would be something like my instinct. You might be able to play something like, rook he1, rook d8, rook e5, try something like this. So what Fischer did was he played a prophylaxis move. He played king to b1. And it's a pretty common type of move in this position, and it's a very clear improvement. Like, he doesn't know if he's going to take up the plan of h4, h5. He doesn't know if he's going to take up the plan of rook he1. He doesn't know if he's going to go on a queen sortie. But he knows if he gets rid of this possibility of queen to g5 check, that his position has improved. So he's effectively found a way to improve his position sort of without committing to any particular plan. And that's usually what a prophylaxis move is. Is it the best move in the position? Could he have found a sharper move, keeping his king on c1 and maintaining that risk? Sure, if he'd looked at it at home. But of course, he didn't plan on getting to a completely equal position with the white pieces against Petroian. So now he's trying to find a move that says, okay, I want to maximize the choices that my opponent has in this position so that hopefully in a move or two moves or three moves, he makes some sort of mistake that maybe I can capitalize on, and then I can get an advantage later. And that's exactly what Fischer managed to do. He managed to get an advantage in this game, and eventually he managed to win. So it kind of worked out. This was like a good prophylaxis move. So instead of going into the nuts and bolts of this game, I'm going to show you a couple other examples where prophylaxis moves can do just that. They can give your opponent more choices, and they can make the positions easier for you to win because it's easier for them to make mistakes. Because this position objectively is still equal. We're still counting on black to make some sort of error in order for us to win. But the move king b1 is a completely reasonable way to play chess, and it's a very practical way to create prophylaxis against some of black's ideas like queen g5 check, etc. So another example also comes out of the Caro-Kann. in this classical variation. Bishop f5, knight g3, bishop g6, h4, h6, and then we go down this main line. And I had trouble in this main line for years because mostly like all of this is theory and all of it is just analyzed to death. And like I couldn't win games with the white pieces because people were just following their theory and they were following their computer preparation all the way to the end. So all this is really well known, knight d4, a6. So when I started getting success, because there's essentially like three main moves in this position that everybody plays. They either play like knight f3, knight b3, or rook d2. And what I was discovering was there was just so much preparation on these moves. There was so much preparation on knight b3, rook d2, knight f3, whatever. I mean, everybody had these moves prepared to death. And so what I started playing was like it's like the computer's fourth pick, but it's on level ground with all these other moves. I started playing king b1. So it's kind of the same idea. Is I'm offering this pawn on c4 like for a second move in a row. Like last move, black couldn't take this pawn because there's this tactic. There's this tactic: queen captures c4, knight f5, and if you play queen takes e4, you have knight d6 check, and you pick up a whole piece. It's a really cool tactic, actually. So you might be thinking, okay, I'm offering the identical tactic, and that's actually the trick. Is when I play after a6, when I play king b1, it looks like I'm offering the identical tactic of queen c4, knight f5. But maybe to somebody that's a decent enough calculator, they realize that knight f5 is no longer a threat because now on queen takes e4, that move is check. So they might view this prophylaxis move, which it is a prophylaxis move. It gets the king out of the way. It prepares rook to c1. It gets the king off of basically the c file, which is what I want to do. But it looks like kind of an anti prophylaxis move. It looks like maybe I hang my pawn. So I'm giving another opportunity to take this pawn. And then, of course, the move is not knight f5. The move is actually bishop a5, opening up this idea of rook c1. And this ultimately wins material. So I'm protecting that pawn in another way. And if they don't take the pawn, like if they even find the absolute best continuation, like if they find something like bishop e5, I can actually sacrifice this pawn. I can play c5 and then knight c5, queen e3, and then say bishop f6, rook c1, b6, knight b3. I'm aiming at absolutely everything. And according to the engine, this is best play, and this is still supposed to be slight edge white. So I'm getting my king out of the way, and I'm setting up all these different ideas, and I'm maybe giving my opponent a position that he's a little less comfortable with, and the chances that he's going to find this exact line, even just to end up with a slight disadvantage, aren't that great, and the chances that he's going to play this correctly after he finds it aren't that great. And I've got a lot of things that I no longer have to worry about because my king is not sitting on this dark square diagonal or on this open file. So that gives me a lot less to worry about. Now, another example of prophylaxis, and this one is one that I see kind of at the highest levels recently, is just kind of a way to get people out of book kind of early or to make them just take up a different plan just because. So this happens in the Sicilian, and it especially happens in the Najdorf. And I've heard people talk about like this move h5, which is a prophylaxis move. It prevents g4, and it's a pretty obvious prophylaxis move. It's like the normal plan here is for white to play g4, g5, etc. So now white has to come up with a new plan. Now, is h5 any better than any other move in this position? I mean, not really. I mean, there's other moves that black can play in this position. You could have castled instead of playing h5. You could have developed your knight on b8. You could have played, any number of moves are fine. But it maybe makes white come up with a new plan. It makes him reevaluate the position. It makes him have additional preparation. And that's always been my experience with prophylaxis moves. You get to a point where the position is equal or you have nothing better to do, and you're not sure what the best move is. But if you make a prophylaxis move, you at least know that you just made a good move. So it's not necessarily the best move, but it's definitely a good move. So taking that time, now Luft I think falls under a different category. A lot of times Luft is the best move because it frees up both your rooks. But moves like h5 to preemptively prevent g4, usually you have other options. Moves like king b1 to prevent some queen g5 check at some later date. Again, a lot of times you have sharper options where you can take advantage of things faster. And same thing with moving like the king from g1 to h1. A lot of times you have sharper options where you can take advantage of things faster. But you know that it's not a bad move, and you know that it improves your position. maybe in a situation where you're not exactly sure what improves your position because you've gotten to a situation where you're equal and you didn't get what you wanted to get out of the position and you just need to find some way to make some kind of progress. And that's where I think like pure prophylaxis moves really come into play. It's a great thing to have in your back pocket for tournaments because I guarantee you will not play every single game where you stay perfectly within your computer preparation every single time. And you will have to find a way to just make good moves and improve your position without necessarily being 100% committed to always finding that computer best move every single time. So anyways, I hope you found this video helpful, informative, and can use some of these ideas in your own games. Thank you very much for watching.